Nation.
Welcome to the Bulldogs Tailgate Show.
A terrific day of football ahead. Dogs need that kind of toughness in every game.
He's a big play kind of guy.
So much on the line, and the fans are ready for it. It's going to feel like an earthquake here in Athens.
Today's show is brought to you in part by Comcast. Change the way you experience TV with Xfinity X1. Textron. Nature's Own, the official bread of the Georgia Bulldogs. Georgia Farm Bureau, always the home team. Racetrack. And by Kroger. Fresh food, low prices. This is the Bulldogs Tailgate Show.
Ball back to the 44, lob pass caught by Notre, reaches high and brings it down, and he's tackled at the 28-yard line. He reached high around the 35, and long strides got him down to the 28-yard line.
Notify the state militia. The University of Georgia fan base has become an occupying attack force in Indiana and Illinois. In ever-exploding numbers, since Tuesday, we have taken Chicago and Northwest Indiana by storm, turning Wrigley Field into a Friday night pep rally. Today, campus from 20,000 feet here in South Bend must look like a red ant farm, with the thousands and thousands of fans who have invaded South Bend. Hello, Bulldog Nation. No doubt you've been counting the days till this contest, historic in terms of our program, as Georgia makes its first ever trip to South Bend to take on Notre Dame. Needless to say, the players are pretty jacked up too.
Being from Miami, I remember watching the 30 for 30, Miami versus Notre Dame, and that, it stuck out to me. But, also just knowing the history they got, I think they have the most national championship wins. They've been playing football forever, and they got the big, huge, beautiful statue, the touchdown Jesus. There's a lot of rich history there.
There's receiver Javon Wims. Scott Howard is up in the press box. Lauren Smith and Eric Zier joining me here on the Scana sideline at Notre Dame Stadium. Scott, in our 30 hours we've been here, have you been able to truly take in the electricity that this game has generated for our Georgia fan base?
I think so. I think we saw a lot of that yesterday when we got up here a little bit early, and all of us were able to tour the campus a little bit, come into the stadium, peek inside here, and get a look at where we would be working later today, and we got a tour of the campus. It's a beautiful setting here, and all around while we were touring, I mean, it was red and black, go Dogs every time we passed somebody. So it was you could kind of feel it building there, and it continued to build over the course of the day. And some of us on the radio crew were here until last evening getting prepared here, and the Georgia fans continue to be here throughout yesterday. And then there's a huge contingent that was in Chicago last night for Cubs action, and if you've been online at all, you've seen the pictures. The Georgia fan base kind of took over Wrigley Field, is what we're being told, and it's really electric all the way from Chicago, 2.5 hours away, all the way here to South Bend. It's a very distinct Georgia Bulldog flavor that we haven't seen on the road in a long time.
And it's an excitement that's starting to grow. You get out of last season, and all everybody was talking about was this game and this trip, a trip of a lifetime, coming to an iconic place. We had a chance to visit it yesterday, and it's starting to boil over now. Just where we parked, walking into the stadium this morning, past hundreds and hundreds of Bulldog faithful, and boy, every time you walk, the Go Dogs and the barking, it's loud and clear, and this place is going to know that we have arrived. Hopefully when we leave, we're raising that Georgia flag in victory as well.
Well, I want to make sure we don't forget to compliment Notre Dame about its wonderful hospitality. I've been here before. I saw the Catholics versus the Convicts game, brought my son Kent here. That was a wonderful experience. These press boxes, upper boxes, were not here. It was the old traditional bowl. But everywhere you go, you get greeted. Older guy told me today, saw my red jacket, and said, "Thanks for coming." It's a little bit like Missouri that first time.
Yes.
It just very much reminds me of that. But the fact that there's a class to what Notre Dame does. Mm-hmm. There is a very strong touch of class, and I think that's a reminder that your passion should never overflow into any kind of ire or contempt. It does sometimes with some schools and some places, and some games, but I just think the Notre Dame hospitality is exceptional, and I had experienced it before, so this is not a new thing.
Well, I think all three of you have hit on some really nice spots here, that we've had a great time here, and everybody's been very kind. Loran, as you were saying, I mentioned yesterday to people that it reminded me of our first trip to Missouri as well. I think it's that Midwest hospitality. We hear a lot about Southern hospitality, and we all know, being from the South, how true that is. But the Midwest hospitality has been terrific. And last night I went to the president's reception and dinner. President Moorhead had a reception and dinner for several people who had made the trip. And both he and Greg McGarity, our athletic director, were talking about having come here during the day yesterday and coming over to the stadium and picking up a number of tips, as they like to do whenever they go someplace new. But this is really someplace new. I mean, we go to Tennessee every other year, right? We go to Alabama every 5th or 6th or 8th year or whatever. But they said, boy, we've picked up a lot of tips on things we can do in Athens. And I will certainly hope that in 2 years, when Notre Dame comes and visits the Classic City, that we are able to show the same kind of hospitality and class to their fan base when they come to Athens.
Well, I met a guy through Bill Lewis named Tom O'Donnell, and then Tom Haig, his associate, invited me to a tailgate today. They really know how to tailgate, and what they do is they have a committee of about 6. They pay for everything, so anybody's welcome. No charge. You don't get the cold shoulder if you're an outsider. Mm-hmm. Opposing fans are always welcome. Everything you eat and drink is on the committee. So I found exceptional hospitality wherever I go. But here, it's like everything else that Notre Dame does, over the top.
Yeah, Scott, did Loran invite you to that tailgate with the free food and booze? Scott, I guess Scott couldn't.
I didn't. I didn't get invited.
Eric didn't get invited. Yeah, well, okay. Very good. That's right.
I was with Butler. I don't think Butler got invited either.
Well, you guys walking through the parking lot got invited to everybody's tailgate. You couldn't
when
get to
we
the
come
stadium.
back, you'll be invited.
We did. It was great.
Yeah, I'll bet you did.
Yeah, when you come back, we'll make sure you get invited.
Loran, you've seen a lot of Georgia football over the years. I'd hazard to say maybe more than any living human being. Where does this trip rank in terms of non-bowl and non-championship games?
Well, I don't think I've ever seen anything like it. I mean, New Orleans in 1980, of course, you know what that meant. But this game just connected with people, and then I think with the Cubs being in town and then the Falcons playing the Bears tomorrow, it just resonated with everybody, and I think it's great. This is what's great about college football, that everybody wants to see this venue. And I know other schools that come here have the same emotion from their fans, but being able to go to another campus, I've been doing it for years. For years, when Georgia has an open date, I've always gone to another campus to see how they do things, try to see the big rivalries, Texas A&M, Ohio State, Michigan, some of those kinds of rivalries. I just like to go see what other people do. And I think that's what is great about college football, because as the Notre Dame tailgaters point out, we only want you to be disappointed in the final score. They're very hospitable. Everybody's welcoming, and there's no animosity. They want to win like we want to win, but they treat you like ladies and gentlemen.
Very good. Now to football. 1 week ago, freshman Jake Fromm was pressed into action when Jacob Eason was lost for an undetermined period of time to a knee injury. Fromm entered the game with barely a warm-up and promptly snapped a lethargic offense out of its doldrums and led the Dogs to 3 TD drives over the span of approximately 12 minutes.
He's a gamer. I mean, he's just a kid that grew up around the game. I mean, I look at him and compare him to what would be a coach's son, a football junkie. He likes it. He loves being around it. He's always cheering and fired up out there. I mean, every time he makes a good throw or good play in practice, he's jacked up, and he's as excited for the kid who made the play as he is himself.
There's Coach Smart. Eric Zier, frankly, I was kind of surprised at the number of people who poo-pooed Fromm's performance as middling. He did okay. How do you rate it upon reflection?
Yeah, I thought he did outstanding. 10 out of 15, 143 yards, 1 touchdown. Most importantly, no interceptions. Pretty good for the first time that you're between the hedges without knowing that you're going to be in the game. Coming off the bench as a backup is extremely difficult. Of course, you're always told to prepare like you can get in the game at any moment, but knowing that you're not going to be the first one to take the snap, it is an unbelievably difficult task. He did it. Sure, there were a few reads that he missed, a couple of balls that maybe he got a little bit lucky with, but the composure, his mechanics, the way every single member of this football team responded the minute he stepped on that field. Outstanding. The tempo that this offense played at with him under center, it was, Scott and I talked about it during the broadcast last week. We don't think we've ever seen this Georgia offense play at that kind of tempo. A lot of that has to do with Jake Fromm and his ability to make accurate reads, get the football moving, get the ball into the hands of playmakers. I thought it was an outstanding first performance.
I saw a fan who's also a friend on campus. This is probably 2 hours ago when I was walking around, and he said to me, Fromm played well. He said, but Neil, I've got some concerns about some of the passes. And I said, wait, stop. I want to make sure before you say anything else that you're going to tell me right now that you have concerns about a true freshman's first game being called cold off the bench to come in front of 94,000 people, and you had some concerns about some of his passes. Let me just make sure that that's what we're talking about here. And he went, yeah. And I said, we're going to end the conversation and let you just think about that because I got to move on, all right? I mean, what has this come to?
Yeah, and listen, a couple of the concerns. One was a touchdown pass.
Yeah,
that was probably a little. It was thrown late. Probably not one that you would, in the film room as you're going through it, the direction from the coach is going to be, hey, listen, get to a check down and let's just make sure that we don't take a play that's been disrupted and make it into a bad play. But he put that football in the only place that Javon Williams could get it, gave his guy a chance to go up and get it. And by the way, the composure that he showed standing in the pocket on that play was amazing. Had a guy barreling down, coming in, hit him right in the chest as he let it go. Three guys hit him. It is, so listen, there were a couple of missed reads, but mechanically he looked fantastic. Looked in control of the situation the entire time. You can go, when he is a senior, you're going to be able to go into any game and say, boy, you shouldn't have made that throw. That's going to happen the rest of his career.
I can't remember the guy's name, but I remember a defensive back at Oklahoma, Barry Switzer, told me, intercepted 3 passes, returning for touchdowns, and was named National Back of the Week. Barry said he was out of position on all 3 plays.
No kidding. Golly Moses. Anyway, today in Notre Dame, Fromm and the Bulldogs confront an opponent that, talent-wise, is likely on a different strata than App State.
We're going to get to find out a lot more about our defense because the backs are going to be bigger and faster. The quarterback's going to be bigger and faster. The offensive line's bigger. The wideouts, they're all 6'3", 6'4", 6'5".
Loran, Irish coach Brian Kelly replaced both his offensive and defensive coordinators following last year's 4-8 debacle of a season. Are the early results of 49-16 thrashing of Temple in the opener, are they any kind of reasonable indicator that Notre Dame has rediscovered its path to success?
Well, I don't know. I think you make panic decisions sometimes. Firing a coach in the middle of the season is very rare and very unusual, as he did with Ben Gordon. So I don't know what it means. I just think we need to go out and make sure that he starts regrouping next week.
Very good. I'm down with that. Scott, for the first time since the 1950s, the Irish produced 3 players with 100-plus yards rushing in a single game. Tell us about their running backs, please.
Josh Adams, I think he hit 100 yards last week on his 6th carry against Temple. He finished with 161 yards, and this guy he's a load. I mean, he's Herschel Walker size at 6'2" and 225. He runs very strong. He's very powerful. He tends to run upright a little bit. That may be the one complaint about Josh Adams, but hopefully that's a hindrance to him today and helpful for Georgia to get him on the turf. Dexter Williams is one of the other backs that went over 100 yards last week. 124 yards for Williams, who is a 5'11" junior. He's a Florida kid. That was his first career 100-yard game. And then the other guy that went over 100 yards is their quarterback, Brandon Wimbush, who is he's about the same size as Adams, the back. I mean, he's at 6'1" or 6'2", depending on who you talk to, but about 228 pounds, and he's got extreme quickness. And Brandon Wimbush, the quarterback, he'll just as soon keep it and run as he would to stand back there and fire it and throw the ball. So 3 guys to be concerned with for Georgia's defensive unit today.
Well, overall, Notre Dame torched the Owls for 422 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns behind their mammoth offensive line. It's led by 6'8", 315-pound tackle Mike McGlinchey.
They got 4 O-linemen that have played for a long time, and there's good-looking O-line as you'll play ever.
Georgia defensive back J.R. Reed has seen tape of the Notre Dame quarterback Brandon Wimbish.
Type of offense, man, we can't let that guy get out the pocket. We got to really contain him and keep him under those yardage and keep him, in the pocket and throwing that ball. Don't let him break it and run.
Well, in his first collegiate start, Scott just alluded to the rushing yards, 12 carries for 106 yards for Wimbush. Passing, he was 17 of 30 for 184 yards and 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Eric Zier, how does this Notre Dame offense like to play it?
They want to be up-tempo and quick. They want to hurt you with the run first, and they're going to lean on the strength of this offensive line that we're talking about. They are mammoth. Every member of that starting front, 5 over 300 pound. They've got a couple of guys that are preseason All-American on the left side of their line. They want to be able to run the football. 422 yards last week against Temple. Of course, we just ran through Wimbush's stats as well. They want to get it moving, but they want to play power football in an up-tempo scheme.
All right, thank you, Ben. Nice job. The studio host and producer of the Bulldogs Tailgate Show is Campbell Philpott. Our engineer here in South Bend, Tony Schiavone. Adam Witten, producer. Young Jay Black and Chris Schiavone assist us up in the press box and here on the Scana sideline. The great Paul Hornung is the only player from a losing team ever to win the Heisman. The Irish finished 2-8 in 1956, but in that season, Hornung led Notre Dame in passing, rushing, scoring, kickoff and punt returns, and punting. He also played defense and led his team in passes broken up and was second in interceptions and second in tackles made. Hall of Famer Paul Hornung joins Loran and the Bulldogs Tailgate Show in 2 minutes. It's Georgia versus Notre Dame tonight on the Georgia Bulldogs Sports Network.
Setting the table for Dogs football.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, touchdown!
You're listening to the Bulldogs Tailgate Show.
Ball on the 22-yard line. Handoff Michelle. Bounces out left. 25, 30, 35, 40. Michelle, middle of the field, 50, 45, 40. And they'll bring him down at the App State 34-yard line. A.J. Howard, the strong safety, finally riding Sony Michelle to the turf at the Mountaineer 34.
Sony Michelle cutting loose last week versus App State. Sony is 83 yards shy of passing the great Kevin McClee for 9th place on the all-time Georgia rushing list. Let's hope he gets there and then some tonight here in South Bend. Now here's our Loran Smith. Loran?
Well, it's nice to have an opportunity to talk to our friend Paul Hornung, who lives in Louisville now, but played at Notre Dame and had a great career there. Paul, you had the unusual experience of winning the Heisman Trophy on a team that didn't do quite as well as you. How much has it meant to you through the years to be a Heisman winner?
Well, it's a great honor. It's one honor that I think everybody in America looks up to. And I was very lucky to have a very good junior year. I was high in the voting as a junior. So when it came to be my senior year in 56, we didn't have too much of a team. We were 2-8. But I had a pretty good year offensively, and I won the award, so I was pretty lucky.
What's it like to play at Notre Dame? Such a storied tradition.
Well, it's the best. If you're a quarterback in my day, and you got a scholarship to Notre Dame, not too many people would turn that down, So I felt very fortunate to have the opportunity to go there, and did my best to get through it the best I could.
Then you did radio and television for Irish for many, many years. Everybody thinks there's a mystique about Notre Dame. If you agree, tell us what that mystique is.
I don't know what the mystique is. All I know is they're very popular all over the country. I think that's where the mystique comes in. They don't have to worry about ever selling out. They sell out every game no matter where they go. Nobody can say that.
Well, how often do you get back to the campus?
I go back at least once a year.
Do you miss the television? Do you miss the broadcasting?
Yeah, I miss that. I enjoyed that.
Now,
Lindsey Nelson and I worked about 25 years together, so, we worked Notre Dame together for 10 years, and then we worked in pro football for 15. So that was very unusual to get one of your best friends in the booth with you.
Now, Paul, you on to Green Bay, had great success with Vince Lombardi. I think a lot of people thought that you and Vince were sort of the odd couple, but you have the greatest of respect for your old coach. Why is that?
Well, he was the best. You know, he turned us around, and in his very first meeting, he said, "Listen, I'm used to winning, and we're going to win here, and so you're going to have to get used to it, and you're going to have to get used to practicing hard and playing hard. And if you don't play hard, you won't be playing. You don't have to worry about it." So he laid the law down immediately.
Well, in his book, Run to Daylight, he paid you a nice compliment. He said Hornig can smell the goal line. Did you have a special anticipation about making the big play while you were out on the field?
Well, you know, we had a pretty good offensive line. 2 Hall of Famers, you know, Jerry Kramer, I think, may be lucky enough to get in this year. You know, some of the people I've talked to this year seem to think that this may be the year that Jerry gets in. I sure hope so. I had David Burke down here to speak at my dinner, which I have every year in January. We give an award out. The Paul Hornung Award goes to the most versatile college football player. And David Burke came down and gave the speech last year. You know, and we got a local kid here that I think will win it, Lamar Jackson. He's as about experienced as you'd ever want a quarterback. You know, he's throwing the ball, running the ball, and that's one of the ways that I had good games. I could run the ball and I could throw the ball, and I played pretty good defense. So I was a pretty good all-around football player.
Well, Paul, you've always had a reputation for enjoying the bright lights, but you chose to settle in Louisville after your pro career ended.
Well, that's my home. This is my home. I grew up here. So my partner was here in the real estate business, and so I went in with him. And my mother was here then. She passed away since. But I love Louisville. This is my hometown. That's where I'm going to always be.
And the Derby, how exciting is that every spring?
The best. It's the best. It's the best sporting event in the country as far as I'm concerned. Hopefully I'm going to have a horse in there. We're going to go down to Keeneland for the Keeneland 2-year-old sales coming up with Wayne Lucas, who would be my trainer. So we'll see what happens.
Well, Paul, thanks for taking the time out to be with us today, and we now go back over to Neil Williamson.
All right, thank you, Loran. Very nice. Including our guest Paul Hornung, who captured the award in 1956. Notre Dame boasts 7 Heisman Trophy winners. An additional 3 Irish players finished second in the Heisman voting, including TV commentator and former Washington Redskins star quarterback Joe Theismann. Now, did you know Theismann actually pronounced his name Theismann until Notre Dame publicity man Roger Baldessari suggested that they change the pronunciation to rhyme with Heisman. True story.
Wow, pretty impressive there. Dog fans, join us every Sunday from 10 until noon from the Hilltop Grill as hosts Jeff Dantzler and Kevin Butler break down all of the action from today's game. Hilltop Grill, located at 2310 West Broad Street in Athens.
All right, thank you, Z. We kick at 7:42, I guess, is the kickoff time tonight, right? And we anticipate a sea of red in the stands here in South Bend, far more than the 8,400 tickets allotted to the Bulldogs in this home-and-home series. Coming up next, Cabell Philpott with scores on the Georgia Bulldogs Sports Network.
The perfect way to begin your Georgia football Saturday.
He's got a man! Oh! Touchdown!
Welcome back to the Bulldogs Tailgate Show.
Cabell Philpott inside the network studios. Time for a Comcast Business Scoreboard update as we take you around the SEC, the Southeastern Conference. Doing well so far this afternoon in almost all their games, save one. Top-ranked Alabama blowing out Fresno State at halftime in Tuscaloosa, 28-3. Jalen Hurts, 12 of 13, passing 112 yards and a touchdown to his credit. The lone team I was talking about just a few moments ago, Arkansas, they're down a touchdown at home to number 23 TCU. Just 2 minutes remaining in the first half in that ball game. Number 25 Tennessee up 2 touchdowns on Indiana State. 11:33 remaining in the second. Vanderbilt also up 2 touchdowns on their opponent. They just actually went up 3 touchdowns. It's 20-0 pending an extra point. 8:05 remaining in the second quarter in that ball game. Earlier, Kentucky 27, Eastern Kentucky 16. Ole Miss, Shea Patterson, the quarterback, setting a single-game passing record, 489 yards for the Rebs, 5 touchdowns as Ole Miss beats UT Martin 45-23. As we now head over to our Lauren Smith. Lauren?
Senior tailback Nick Chubb, a native of Cedartown, started off 2017, rushing for 96 yards and 2 touchdowns in the Bulldogs' 31-10 victory over Appalachian State and was named Primerica Player of the Week. Chubb now has 31 rushing touchdowns in his career, which ranks 6th in school history. He stands second in UGA history behind Herschel Walker, who rushed for 5,259 yards. After one game, Nick's career rushing total is 3,520 yards. Chubb is in striking distance of becoming the 8th player in SEC history with 4,000 yards rushing. We'd like to thank Mike Burrows and all our friends at Primerica in helping us recognize a Georgia Player of the Week throughout the season. Now we go back over to Neil Williamson.
All right, thank you, Lauren. The atmosphere in South Bend, it's exhilarating. There is a swarm of red. Bulldogs clad in their red all over this campus. It's just been fantastic weather here at the northern edge of Indiana. A warm, sunny day where it's 69 degrees right now with a nice breeze. Perfect football weather for our game tonight that kicks at 7:42, beg your pardon. Bulldogs fans, shop the UGA bookstore for the best in Georgia gear. The UGA bookstore is open after the game and online 24/7 at UGAbookstore.com. UGA Bookstore, it's where the dogs shop. Let's pause 10 seconds for station identification. This is the Bulldogs Sports Network. Interesting stats from last week's win over App State. In the first half, Georgia rushed the ball 16 times, 15 pass attempts. Perfect balance, right? Second half, Georgia with 29 rushes, only 5 pass attempts. Of course, taking the air out of the game as much as we could with that lead. Jake Fromm, quarterback, 3 drives for the Bulldogs in the second half before yielding with a 31-0 lead. On those 3 drives, the Bulldogs rushed the ball 20 times and attempted only 3 passes. Eric Zier standing by to talk about Jake Fromm in 2 minutes. This is the Bulldogs Tailgate Show from the Scana sideline in South Bend on the Georgia Bulldogs Sports Network.
Hi, Georgia fans. I'm Scott Howard here for UPS. Your customers want more from your business. You've got to make more happen, whether they're in Athens, Georgia, or on the other side of the world. Globally or locally, UPS is building solutions to help businesses give their customers exactly what they want. More. Made easy. UPS, official logistics company of Georgia Athletics.
You know the sound of performance. And you definitely know the name of performance. Toyota Camry, Corolla, and RAV4. A lineup that remains unrivaled. Toyota, let's go places. Get 0% APR for 72 months on a new 2017 Toyota RAV4.
Offer valid through October 2nd, 2017. 0 down for well-qualified buyers with approved credit and financing through Southeast Toyota Finance. $13.89 monthly payment for every $1,000 finance. Excludes tax, tag, registration, title, and dealer fees. See dealer for details.
The dogs are heard right here. This is the Georgia Bulldogs Sports Network.
Act now. Get the speed and reliability of Xfinity Internet for just $19.99 a month for 12 months. Experience speed at a great low price. All for $19.99 a month. Call 1-800-XFINITY and ask how to get more than 2 times the speed for just $10 more a month for 12 months. Or 7 times the speed for $20 more a month for 12 months. Compare that to AT&T, and you'll see why Xfinity delivers faster, more reliable Internet. Plus, Xfinity delivers the best in-home Wi-Fi experience. AT&T doesn't. AT&T can't give you the speed Xfinity does. Get the reliably fast speeds you need and the most most Wi-Fi coverage throughout your home with Xfinity. Call 1-800-XFINITY now to get started with performance starter internet for $19.99 a month for 12 months with a 1-year agreement and EcoBill and auto-pay enrollment. Plus, ask how to get more than double the speed for just $10 more a month for 12 months. Don't wait. Call 1-800-XFINITY today to get this great offer. Without EcoBill and auto-pay monthly service charge increases by $5. Offer ends 9/21/17. Restrictions apply. New customers only. Equipment tax and fees extra and subject to change. After promo, regular rates apply. Wi-Fi claim based on Xfinity gigabit service, router coverage, and speed on 5 gigahertz band. Speed claim based on 2016 FCC Measuring Broadband America report.
You're listening to Dogs Football. Now back to the Bulldogs Tailgate Show.
Snap to Fromm. He's got time. He stands in the pocket. He's going deep for the end zone. It's caught shy of the end zone, shy of the goal line by Wims. He jumped up in the air, caught it at the 3, dove and tried to get the ball over the goal line. Did he? He did. He did. He caught it at the 3. He spun and he reached that ball over the goal line and broke the plane for the touchdown.
He came in and managed the situation well, and every situation will be different because App State obviously wasn't planning for him, so the next team probably will be.
Coach Kirby Smart, spot on that Jake Fromm has a different sort of challenge tonight on the road at Notre Dame than the one he encountered versus App State last Saturday between the hedges. Eric Zier, glad you're back with us again to talk about offense. Give us a grade for Jake last week and tell us one or more things you hope to have he has worked on in practice this week.
Well, listen, I think it was a B plus, probably maybe an A minus, considering all of the circumstances. And really, for anybody in his position, it is to not make the moment bigger than what it really is. This is a football game. You're going against a great football team, but all of the excitement that surrounds this game, the electricity that's going to be in this stadium from Notre Dame fans, from the Dog Nation as well, going on the road for the first time, all that, you can make it bigger. So the big advice that I would give him right now is stay within this offense. We saw a couple of plays last week where maybe there was a little bit of a attempt to do more than maybe he should. Take what the defense gives you, let the talent around you go, win the football game. But everything that this young man is doing right now, or did in that first game, done since he's been on campus, has been an A plus, and he's really done a great job.
Fromm's first collegiate touchdown pass came on a jump ball heave in the second quarter that was snatched out of the air by Javon Wims, who then twisted and fought his way 3 yards into the end zone. Critics have taken Fromm to task all week for attempting that throw into triple coverage while being sandwiched himself between 3 rushing defenders.
I think it was a perfect throw. He gave me an opportunity to go make a play on the ball. It was a perfect throw.
Z, that's Javon Wims. He's the one who caught the ball. He doesn't seem to have any problem with Jake Fromm attempting that pass. Your hindsight on that play, please.
First, Hondo, if you interview any receiver and ask if a ball that it was thrown their way, if it was a bad pass, I don't care if they've got quadruple coverage on them, the answer is going to be absolutely not. Give me a chance to go make a play, and it's sure what Javon Wims did. But there's some good and some bad on that play. First, the good, the composure that Jake Fromm had to be able to stand in the pocket with multiple guys coming at him. He got hit right in the chest as he was letting that football go. Not many guys can make that throw. I don't care how long they've been playing the game when you've got that kind of heat on you. So great composure, great job keeping his eyes downfield as well. But because of the breakdown on that play, where he went with the football, he was just simply late. It was the right spot to go initially because he got the rhythm of the play got knocked off a little bit. Needed to come down to his check down ideally. That's what's going to be coached this week through meetings and on the field as well. But to end or cap this off, what was good is he put that football in a place nobody else could catch it except for his guy. So he gave Javon Wims a chance to go up there and get it, and sure enough he did, and the result's a touchdown.
Nick Chubb and Sony Michel combined for 183 rushing yards last week, and neither carried the ball in the fourth quarter. Everybody look good to you versus App State?
Yeah, they do. They from a running back perspective, not just them. DeAndre Swift came came into the football game. He looked good as well. Really, everybody that carried it looked strong. They looked quick. They looked in control. Outside of just running, some of the blocks that all of them were able to execute. Nick Chubb on the touchdown pass we just talked about, a great blitz pickup, aborting a fake and getting all the way across the line of scrimmage there to pick up the most dangerous man. So they look very good. I think if there's any concern right now on this Georgia offense, it remains with an offensive line that still has room for growth and need for improvement.
Well, Eric talked about the offensive line. It's featured a turnstile of assorted players getting looks at various positions and combinations all of August. Coach Kirby Smart on the job that the Hogs did last week.
Up and down. I think each guy was up and down. A couple good plays, a couple bad plays. I thought Andrew handled the moment well. He had a couple MAs that probably were to be expected. They did a couple things that we hadn't seen that were new to him, which, welcome to football. He'll get that every week in this league.
6'5", 331-pound guard Solomon Kinley did not play last week due to a nagging injury, and that made the line rotations even more difficult for the coaches.
The hardest thing is just not knowing Wasali, whether or not he's going to be able to go and be there. And he had kind of earned that starting right, but with the injury, he wasn't 100% healthy. So that forces Dashawn, Kendall, and Pat, and those guys to keep rotating there.
Eric, who do you suspect we'll see as the starting front five tonight?
Yeah, a lot of similar names. The addition of Solomon Kinley in there as well, but Isaiah Wynn should start at left tackle, Pat Allen at left guard, Lamont Gilliard at center, who did a fine job last week, Solomon Kinley at the right guard, and then Andrew Thomas at right tackle. The good news this year with the offensive line is we're beginning to develop some depth, and we've got some guys that we can roll in there, but expect those 5 guys to be front and center when this game kicks off.
All right, very good. Nice job, Z. Let's hope whichever linemen get the call, they can give Jake Fromm time to operate. Side note, Notre Dame managed a meager 14 sacks in 2016, 5 of those coming in one game. Hopefully we can keep them away from Jake Fromm tonight. Along those lines. Scott Howard and Eric bring you the play-by-play of the first ever visit by Georgia to Notre Dame at 7:42. It's your 15th ranked Dogs versus the number 24 Fighting Irish on the Georgia Bulldogs Sports Network.
This is Georgia Bulldogs football.
35-30, he's got a convoy, he's got to go, touchdown!
Now back to more of the Bulldogs Tailgate Show.
2 receivers out to the left for the Mountaineers. 1 to the right. Run out of the pistol. Fake. Lamb rolls to the left, looking deep, looking. He pulls it down. We knock the ball out of his hands and chase after him. They'll follow the ball back at the 35. J.R. Reed came in and hit Lamb and knocked the ball loose. And then there was a scramble for the ball, and Lamb was able to fall on it back on his own 35-yard line. A sizable loss.
He's very competitive. He loves the game. He plays fast. He's a good open field tackler. I just think the kid's really a student of the game. He takes it serious. His approach to the game is the right way.
Kirby Smart commenting on J.R. Reed, who turned in that sack and subsequent sizable loss against App State last week. Now, Reed's father, Jake, enjoyed a long, successful NFL career, mostly with the Vikings. Still, kid's seen a lot, but he's fired up about the trip to South Bend.
When I saw them on the schedule, I was really happy about going up there. They got Touchdown Jesus. They're a historic team. They got a bunch of Hall of Famers on that team. And as a kid growing up and seeing that team and hear about Rudy and watching 30 for 30, you always dream about playing there.
Along with Scott Howard, Eric Zier, this is Neil Hondo Williamson down on the sidelines here at South Bend. And here's our Loran Smith with a special guest. Loran?
Thank you, Neil. Joining us, John Heisler, who is the Senior Associate Athletic Director at Notre Dame, former Sports Information Director. He's also a historian, administrator, and author. You've written a lot of books, John. I want to get into that in just a moment. But new to even the Notre Dame fans is your big jumbo scoreboard. You were telling me about the controversy involved there before we sat down to talk on the air. Interestingly, you have no commercial endorsements in any way. That's quite unusual.
It is. It's just been a different approach. Our stadium really, for so long, was just a very clean approach. There was nothing on the field. There was not a logo that didn't say Notre Dame anywhere. There were just stripes in the end zones, and when you came in here, you didn't see any signage. You didn't really see much of anything. The scoreboard, even the old scoreboard, was very understated. It just sort of showed the score and down and distance, and not much more. So, and again, there was a group of our fans that took pride in that. They liked it that way because the emphasis was on the football. There wasn't some suggestion that you were trying to worry about entertaining people. You were here to see a football game.
And of course, we all think that tailgating is so important to college football. If we ever lose that, we really are in trouble. You have a tremendous tailgating history here, tradition. I know I've met a couple in doing a book on college football tailgating, and I went to a tailgate today, and I was told, look, all the food and drink you want is fine, no charge. Come on and enjoy it. We welcome visitors, especially the opposing team, as well as we do our own. That's a nice tradition. And you have a nice hospitality atmosphere here at Notre Dame. We feel very welcome.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that because I think our people in general and our ushers and everybody that sort of works on the game day thing has taken pride in that for a long time. So their kind of catchphrase, you probably heard it a million times already, is "Welcome to Notre Dame." And so you probably heard that from all sorts of people. And even I'm trying to think how long this goes back. Maybe I'd say 8 years ago. Again, not that we wouldn't do kind of a self-analysis every year in terms of thinking, okay, let's analyze how game day goes, and there's so many things that were a part of it. But again, maybe all of us in athletics, we're living in our own little world. So we actually had some outside people come in and sort of take stock of all these things, and we involved some alumni, we involved some students, we involved a whole bunch of other people in terms of just trying to take a look at the whole thing. And what came out of that was actually a whole department called Game Day that now has 3 or 4 full-time employees, and that's all they worry about all year long. So they created their own website that incorporated all the activities of the weekend, and they spend all their time trying to make sure that things are going to go great on Saturdays.
You have written a couple of books on Newt Rockne, and I sort of, from my little my limited research, if football ever put a school on the map, it would be football at Notre Dame. And I've always been fascinated by the Rockne stories, and I met a guy who'd been an exchange student in Athens from Voss, and I had been to Voss, and I was telling him, I said, I've been to your hometown. It's the birthplace of Newt Rockne, the famous American coach. His name pronounced Canute in many cases. He says, we don't canoe him. But Rockne was before your time. What was so great about Newt Rockne?
Well, I think as good a football coach as he was, and he won plenty of games and won national championships, no matter how you calculated it. He was maybe better as a marketer. So at a time when the whole idea of communication and things like that were a little bit different, he was the guy who set about kind of marketing the Notre Dame football program, and obviously that helped the university at large. Some of it was scheduling. So like Jack Swarbrick, our current athletic director, he goes back to 1913 when Jess Harper was our coach and Rockne was a player. He was a senior in school, and we played West Point out at Army when Army was one of the traditional powers back in those days. And we won the football game. Kind of unlikely because that was as far as Notre Dame had ever traveled to play a football game. But it had a huge impact, and it kind of put us on the map. And so part of this, and this is, again, we're 100 years later, we're still trying to do this, is we're trying to be an independent because we want to be able to play all over the place. So the whole notion of being able to play, and I think now you're in the whole bowl championship series aspect of it and what that's about and the playoffs, you've got to have a strength of schedule that matches up. And so part of our idea is, even with our association with the ACC, so that means we've got 5 ACC schools on our schedule every year, but we're going to do our best to spread the rest of it around. And so we're trying to get people from every conference, maybe just a couple of games at a time. And again, this relationship is for these couple of years is a great example of that. We're going to play Arkansas a couple of games. We're going to play A&M a couple more games. We're going to continue to play Navy. We're going to continue to play USC and Stanford, and then try to sprinkle in some of the Big Ten teams, Michigan again, and Purdue and Michigan State here and there. But that's the one thing that, as much as television has sort of equalized the landscape in big-time football, that's the one thing that we can still do, is we can play a more national schedule maybe than anybody else is doing, and that's what we want to do.
Well, John, we sure hope that when you come to Athens in 2019 that our fans, our friends and supporters are as hospitable to you as you've been to us. It's really been a wonderful experience. I'd like to thank John Heisler for joining us. We go back over to Neil Williamson.
All right, thank you, Loran. John, thank you. I echo what Loran just said. The people up here have just been fantastic to the entire Bulldog Nation, which is making a lot of noise outside the stadium right now. All right, stay with us. The voice of the Dogs, Scott Howard, will join us in 2 minutes on the Georgia Bulldogs Sports Network.
Setting the table for Dogs football.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, touchdown!
You're listening to the Bulldogs Tailgate Show.
This moment of commitment is brought to you by Farm Bureau Insurance, always the home team. The University of Georgia is committed to ensuring that all academically qualified students, regardless of financial background, have the opportunity to earn a degree. Scholarships create life-changing pathways that might otherwise be unreachable. So we launched the Georgia Commitment Scholarship Program to offer more scholarships to the students who need it the most. The University of Georgia is removing barriers and opening doors for students. It's more than our mission. It's more than our passion. It's our commitment.
Here's Georgia for a field goal try from the far hash, kicking right. It'll be a 23-yard attempt by Rodrigo Blankenship. Nizilik to hold. There's the snap. The kick is in the air, and the kick is good. Dogs lead it 24-0.
Rodrigo with the gimme putt on his only field goal attempt last week. Allstate sponsors this look at the Bulldogs kicking game. Allstate, are you in good hands? Neil Williamson back on the Scana sideline, and joining us up in the box right now is the voice of the Dogs, Scott Howard. Scott, Rodrigo delivered on the chip shot, but perhaps more important, he over-delivered on his kickoffs.
Boy, did he ever. He kicked every one of them into the end zone. Only one was returned, and it was a short return at that. But most of them were the automatic touchbacks. I mean, they had balls sailing over the back line of the end zone or deep enough in the end zone where they weren't returned. So whatever Rodrigo did in the offseason to address that, it paid dividends in week number 1, and we were certainly glad to see it.
Yeah, hopefully you can keep up the Boomers tonight and all season. Punting, terrible in 2015. Dogs ranked 96th in the nation in net punting that year. Then last year we slipped to 115th. But last week, the graduate transfer, Nizilik, roared like a lion in his Sanford Stadium debut.
Yeah, he averaged almost 44 yards a kick last week, 5 punts. He had a long of 53. He was kicking them inside the 20. Fair catches, all of them. 5 fair catches. So App State had no punt return yards. Nizilik really delivered last week, and everybody that watches Georgia football, listens to Georgia football, certainly hopes that will continue because, as you pointed out, that was certainly a touchy area for Georgia last year. It was an area that needed improvement. They needed to address it, and it looks like that has been addressed, and it has, at least through one game, has improved.
Hey, let's talk about the stadium real quick here, Scott. If you look, looking down from the box, and you can see where we are down on the Georgia team bench. How about what they have here that separates the stands from the benches? It's not a hedge.
What is that? It's flowers, I guess, right?
It's flowers. And yesterday, Chuck Dowdle, when I asked him what kind of flowers, he said yellow.
He's quite the botanist.
Yeah, I think they're little mini mums is what they are, but beautiful flowers. And then there's like some other kind of grassy stuff that looks like sea oats, but I doubt it's sea oats. So it's like flowers and sea oats all in these planters that are probably. Yeah, I've got yard lines right behind me, so probably 20 yards long each. Really beautiful on both sidelines.
Yeah, just about from the 10 to the 10 or the 11 to the 11. So it does run the length of the sideline. And I'm looking at the yellow flowers that are so gorgeous and the shape of them. They're kind of domed shape. I'm thinking maybe that's related to the gold dome that I can see from the box here that's over outside the stadium to our right, the famous Notre Dame gold dome. Maybe there's some relationship there.
Perhaps there is. Gold flowers and the green grass, a little golden green. And thank you, Scott Howard. It's great to have this opportunity for all of us to be up here in South Bend. We're on the Scana sideline, getting pumped for the Dogs versus the Fighting Irish. We'll kick tonight at 7:42 on the Georgia Bulldogs Sports Network.
The perfect way to begin your Georgia football Saturday.
He's got a man! Oh! Touchdown!
Welcome back to the Bulldogs Tailgate Show.
Cabell Philpott inside the network studio. Time for a Comcast Business Scoreboard update as we take a look around the SEC. Top-ranked Alabama at halftime, averaging more yards per rush than yards per completion. That's almost unheard of. It's now midway through the third quarter in Tuscaloosa. The number one team in the nation up 28-3 on Fresno State. Number 23 TCU still clinging to a touchdown lead on Arkansas and Fayetteville. 11:25 remaining in the third quarter in that ball game. Number 25 Tennessee, a kickoff return for a touchdown. 28-0 over Indiana State with 53 seconds remaining until halftime. Vanderbilt may be pretty good this year. 35-0 up on Alabama A&M are the Commodores. 1:37 remaining in the second quarter in that ball game. Some big games tonight. A 7 o'clock kick. 13th ranked Auburn matching up against 3rd ranked Clemson. A big one in Death Valley this afternoon. Earlier today, number 4 Penn State 14, Pitt 3, 14:31 remaining in the third quarter. 18th ranked Virginia Tech up 17-0 on Delaware. 9:12 remaining in the third in that ball game. And a big one tonight in the Horseshoe. Number 2 Ohio State facing 5th ranked Oklahoma. A 7:30 kick from the Horseshoe. Crazy stat I heard today, Hondo. Ohio State has never beaten a non-conference opponent ranked number 5 in the nation or better in its entire history. That's pretty amazing for a team of that kind of stature.
Wow, that's a very, very interesting stat there. Thank you, Cabell. I'm going to have to mull on that one for a little bit. Well, this member of our broadcast team was actually recruited by the Fighting Irish. Eric Zier, you had a nice, quick recruiting story up here, right?
It was quick. I don't know if it was nice. They brought me up in the middle of December, which was a big recruiting weekend for them at the time. I'm not sure why. I got here, the campus was unrecognizable from what you see right now. There was so much snow on the ground. As soon as that plane landed, I was like, I'm not sure why I'm here. And then I knew I shouldn't be here when I was sitting in the office with Coach Holtz, and we were talking about running the option. I looked at him and was, did he even know who I was? Have you seen me run?
Oh, my goodness. Has he seen you pass? First player for you folks who are too young enough, Eric Zier, first passer in SEC history to pass for more than 10,000 career yards. And Eric's Desires are presented by our Metro Atlanta Amco dealers. Z, what are your desires for today's battle with Notre Dame?
Well, I want to see us start fast. You're coming into this iconic stadium, just tremendous atmosphere. Emotions can run amok the minute you step on the field. The Irish are going to be equally as fired up. So got to keep this game close, especially early. Don't let it get away from you. On the defensive side of the ball, a couple of things very quickly here. In the secondary, we have to be great today. We know the Irish like to run the football. Over 400 yards last week. We're going to have to load that box up. We're going to be singled up on the outside with some receivers that go 6'5", 6'4", 6'4", big boys. We got to stay close and be in their shirts all afternoon in our front seven to go along with that. They've got to be disruptive and get into the backfield as much as we possibly can. Disrupt the timing, and then finally attack the secondary. I know we've got a freshman quarterback. I know we've got great running backs, but the secondary for the Irish, their least experienced unit coming back into this year. Only 2 guys that had at least 7 starts in their career. We're going to have some opportunities to pick on some people that are going to be just as nervous as we might be coming into this game. I want us to attack them.
All right, thank you, Eric. Coach Kirby Smart gives us a scouting report of the Fighting Irish in about 25 minutes. For a couple of series in the first half last week, one Bulldog defender seemed to have clones of himself all over the field making plays. Our Tony Schiavone checks in with our player interview next on the Georgia Bulldogs Sports Network.
You're listening to Dogs Football. Now back to the Bulldogs Tailgate Show.
Lamb takes the snap. Quarterback draw. He runs right into a wall of red shirts led by Davin Bellamy and then Lorenzo Carter. That's a nasty 1-2 punch.
Tailgate Show for the Notre Dame game continues as we're talking to senior outside linebacker Davin Bellamy. Thanks for your time, big guy. And this has been a question I know you've been asked a lot, but we've never talked about it here on the Tailgate Show, about your decision to come back for your senior year.
Right. I just felt like it was a lot left that I had to do personally and leading these young guys. I would have felt like I did them an unjust thing if I would have left last year. Right. Such a young group of guys with so much talent, which really just needed some guidance kind of for one more year before, turning the keys over.
Right, exactly.
And so it was way much bigger than me, man. And right now I'm really happy about the decision I made, because all of us who decided to come back, but we all on board to do something better.
Right. Well, Davin, that says a lot about you as a person, and it says a lot about this program. Kirby talks about leadership, and you guys take that seriously, don't you?
Definitely. We have a lot of leaders on this team, a lot of older guys, and everybody leads in their different ways. And I think that's the best thing that we have going right now is you have your vocal leaders, you have your leaders that lead by example,
sure.
And then you have your mentor of the team who pull the young guys to the side, but they don't really, you know what I'm saying? So yeah. It's just it takes a village to raise, you know what I'm saying? Really a team, and kind of this aspect I'm trying to put it in, but I just think it's just a great balance on this team of a lot of things.
Go back to the Appalachian State game. You had 2 tackles, pressured the quarterback a couple of times. Talk about overall how you thought the defense performed.
I thought everybody played their job well, and it's kind of showed in the stat book. A lot of guys had some tackles in those numbers, with those columns, and because App State is an offense they're going to take advantage if you don't do your assignment, and I think our defense did very well and containing a very, very tricky offense. They engraved that option with shotgun and pistol and a lot of weapons.
Right. There's no question about how big this game is, this Notre Dame game, but on a national stage, but also how special it is for guys to get a chance to play there because of the legend of Notre Dame.
Of course.
And I'm sure that during practice you guys talk about that and know that.
Right, and like especially me being the older guy, my era of kind of when I was a freshman in high school and watching college athletes and looking up to them was that Brady Quinn era.
Right.
So, and he had Notre Dame rocking.
Right.
And so those games were televised back then, and just kind of seeing like they have great fans that go nuts up there.
Sure.
Especially for those night games. And growing up in this area, kind of a Georgia kid, you kind of picture yourself going to a SEC school, so you kind of never imagine you would play at Notre Dame. So I'm excited for the trip and also just for the competition, man. You playing somebody who you never thought you would play before. It's a legendary program.
Yeah, they had 3 100-yard runners in game 1, and Coach Smart says they got a big offensive line, so that's a challenge.
They do. It is. But not to take anything away from those guys, but we got to see that every week in the SEC.
Right.
You got Ralph Webb one week, and you got the guy from Kentucky one week. Something that this kind of defense is used to, but not taking away things for those guys. That's a big old line out there. Right. And, we have some talent out here too, but that old line has a lot of NFL talent.
Sure.
And those guys, they're poised for this game.
Well, sure.
So it's going to be a battle, man. Like, both teams going to run the ball, man. It's going to be some old school football, and I'm excited for it, man. I love games like that.
Well, we are too. Listen, thanks so much for what you meant to the program, to the team. Congratulations on the start of the senior year. Keep it up, big guy.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Okay, that's linebacker Davin Bellamy. Let's send it back on the field here at Notre Dame to the Tailgate Show with more with Hondo and the guys.
All right, thank you, Tony. Last week in the stadium, the Fighting Irish suffocated Temple 49-16, allowing the Owls only 330 yards in total offense. That's a far cry from Notre Dame's defensive performances last year. In 2016, Notre Dame's D ranked 100th or worse in total defense, scoring, and yards per play. In fact, it allowed 33 points or more 6 times, losing 5 of those games. Let's hope Jake Fromm, Nick Chubb, Sony Michel, and company can crack the reshaped Irish tonight.
Bulldog fans, shop the UGA Bookstore for the best in Georgia gear. The UGA Bookstore is open after the game and online 24/7 at UGABookstore.com. UGA Bookstore, it's where the dogs shop.
15th-ranked Georgia climbs into the octagon with number 24 Notre Dame from South Bend at 7:42. Coach Kirby Smart previews this historic first-time trip and game in about 25 minutes here on the Georgia Bulldogs Sports Network.
This is Georgia Bulldogs football.
35-30. He's got a convoy. He's got to go. Touchdown.
Now back to more of the Bulldogs Tailgate Show.
App State substituting, bringing some bigger bodies in if they have any. Handoff Chubb. He darts to the left. He pushes his way in. And let's see. Yeah, touchdown.
That's the way we want to start out the season, with Nick Chubb scoring a touchdown, one of 2 for Nick last week as the Dogs won solidly between the hedges. Tonight presents an altogether different challenge and opportunity here in South Bend. Loran Smith is standing by with Greg McGarity. And Loran, before we go to Greg, when we had John Heisler from Notre Dame on a few minutes ago, he was talking about that big Notre Dame game against Army in 1913, and what ran through my mind, and I just Googled, is Dwight Eisenhower was on that Army team when Notre Dame played them in 1913 in New York.
Yeah, and Greg McGarity covered it for the Athens Banner-Herald.
Nice.
Greg, another big plus for you and your lineup of your menu, let's say, of accomplishments, getting this game on the Georgia schedule. Now, I think you found a willing partner in Notre Dame in that they do want to play games like this. John Heisler talked about that just a little earlier on the show. But how did Georgia playing Notre Dame home and home come about?
Well, I actually got it all started in Athens at the Sports Management Institute at the Georgia Center. Georgia and Notre Dame are participants in that convention, and Josh Brooks on our staff was meeting with his counterpart at Notre Dame and said, how would you guys like to, schedule a home and home series? And so that started in 2013, and talks developed, and both schools were willing to make it happen. And in week 2 in 2017 and week 4 in 2019, so it was really an outstanding opportunity for us to play in an iconic venue, and that was one thing that we all wanted to do. And at the time, Coach Richt was excited about doing it, so we got together with Jack Swarbrick, the Notre Dame AD, and it all happened. And here we are in a phenomenal environment, and something that is certainly something that I've never witnessed before, either in Chicago Thursday night or South Bend yesterday, or even as we arrived at the stadium today. It was just magical.
You think the Georgia kids, the Georgia players, are super excited about today? Not just the importance of the game, but playing in a traditional place, a storied place like Notre Dame.
I don't know if they really get it like you and I do. These young men, they have memory windows of 2 or 3 years. So I don't know if they really know who the certain great players were of Notre Dame or the great coaches and everything. They just know that they're going up against a lot of their peers, as Kirby has said, that they played with in these all-star games and postseason high school games. So they have a familiarity with this group, and I'm sure a lot of them have sort of read about the history and the lore of Notre Dame, but I know these young men are just focused on this game right here, and at some point in time they'll learn exactly all the lore and all the magical moments here at Notre Dame.
Well, when you go to another campus, Greg, you can make notes about some of the things they do. We've been complimenting Notre Dame for its unbelievably warm and courteous hospitality. The tailgating scene is just so great. It reminded, Neil and I talked about it, reminds us of what it was like going to Missouri that first time. Have you noticed anything here that's of particular interest to you as an athletic director?
Well, the massive amount of parking they have is first thing, Lauren. I wish we had this much open field parking. I mean, that's what's is really amazing. The first thing that struck me was, it's a relatively small campus, but the amount of space they have to park everyone. There's 80,000 people or so in the stands. Oddly enough, they just sell 20,000 season tickets, and then the rest are on a per-game basis. So it offers them an opportunity to run through a number of their donors and a bunch of fans that want to come to Notre Dame. But I think they have done a marvelous job of the way they treat people, the way they welcome you, and obviously they know this is the only time we'll be up here, and with a massive amount of Georgia fans up here, I have heard everyone I've bumped into has made those same comments. So a tremendous tribute to Notre Dame, and sure, we can learn something. We learned a lot during our tour of the kind of behind the scenes yesterday, and the way they present the game, and the way they just are able to turn their whole campus into really a Friday festival. So you learn something at every venue that you go to, and it's really neat to come to a venue that no one really has been to before and learn a lot of great things.
Greg, scheduling is so different now. Years ago, you scheduled 8 and 10 years out. Now it's almost year to year. Can you tell us about the opportunity for Georgia to play more teams like this in the future?
Well, we know Notre Dame comes to our house in 19, and then we're at the Mercedes-Benz Dome in 2020, and we got the UCLA series. That was one, Lauren, we had to do so far in advance because a lot of these Power 5 schools have a difficult time scheduling really close in. Our close-in games are sometimes our guarantees, but, at one time we had Penn State on the books, and then they had a coaching change, and that didn't work out, and we had Ohio State on the books at one time, and that coaching change sort of changed the philosophy on, do those coaches really want to play an SEC school? But, this is something that, for the last 4 years, everybody has been pointing towards, and here we are. But, we'd love to do more. We're looking at options in 22, and who knows what else. But it's very difficult to do, and I'm just so happy that this series fell into place and everybody's able to experience a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
Well, we thank you for that. This is great to have this opportunity. I know all fans appreciate it. We'll thank you even more if you can make sure we win tonight. We go back over to Neil.
All right, thank you, Lauren. Thank you to Greg McGarity for stopping by. Bulldogs fans, GeorgiaDogs.com is your first and best source for Bulldogs news, scores, highlights, interviews, and behind-the-scenes video. You can also buy authentic Dogs gear in the G-Shop or bid against other Bulldog fans in our exclusive online auctions. Visit GeorgiaDogs.com today. We are on the Scana sideline at Notre Dame Stadium. It just underwent an extensive $400 million renovation. The expansion featured 3 8-story high buildings on the southwest and east sides of the stadium, adding more than 750,000 square feet of teaching, research, and performance space. And the seating capacity has increased from 81,000 to around 85. In about 30 minutes, or less than that, about 15 minutes now, Coach Kirby Smart sits with the voice of the Dogs, Scott Howard, for a scattering report of tonight's game. We kick at 7:42 on the Georgia Bulldogs Sports Network.
Setting the table for Dogs football.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, touchdown!
You're listening to the Bulldogs Tailgate Show.
Fromm in the ball game after an first quarter injury to Jacob Eason. They go out of the Wild Dog. Direct snap to Sony. He fights his way. Pads clacking. He runs into the end zone. They signal touchdown.
And it was a touchdown. Last Saturday, our fearless crew on the field knocked off App State, and our fearless crew in the booth had our first week's picks, and let's see how we did. Eric Zier 3-0, Lauren Smith 2-1, Scott 1-2. Tough week.
Hey, Texas A&M.
Boy,
Texas
Scott.
A&M.
Oh, that's just
they stuck it to me. They stuck it to me, and then they stuck it to me again. I'm never
picking Texas A&M ever.
And Scott's on the Board of Regents in Texas.
Amen.
All right, let's get to this week's game. South Carolina at Missouri. It's the conference opener for the Cox and the Tigers. And Loran, we'll let you go first. Who do you like?
I like the visiting teams this week.
Ooh. All right, so South Carolina, Z.
Tell you what, Mizzou, all kinds of offense last week. Don't think it's going to hold up against Carolina. I like the Gamecocks as well.
Well, Mizzou had more than 800 yards of total offense, but South Carolina gave up more than 500 yards and managed to upset NC State. I'm going with Missouri. Scott?
All right, Hondo, I'll side with you on this one. I like that Missouri off. What was it, 72 points, something like that, something crazy in their opener.
Crazy.
I know it was Missouri State, but still, that's a lot of points. I like them at home tonight.
All right, very good. Then we have 12th ranked Auburn at number 5 Clemson. I'm going with the Tigers. Scott?
You're funny.
Oh, I wasn't even thinking. Isn't that funny?
Yeah,
I looked down
come on.
I swear.
Yeah.
I looked down and said Clemson. I'm going with the Tigers. No, I'm going with Clemson.
All right, I'm with you. I'm going with the home Tigers, yes.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm going with Clemson as well.
I'm sticking with Clemson this one.
Okay, all right, and then Utah at Brigham Young. Scott, we'll let you go first on this one.
I'll take the Utes on the road. I don't know if that's an upset or not, but I like Utah in this one.
Okay, well, I'm in the boat with Scott Howard on all three.
Well, I'm going to jump right in that boat with you. I like the Utes as well.
Well, I'm certainly not going to swim alone. I'm going to go with Utah also.
Okay, so I guess our differences are really going to be in that Missouri and South Carolina game. We'll see how everybody pans out next week.
You forgot that Will Muschamp is a defensive guru.
I know. They gave up 500-plus yards to
He's still
NC
a
State
guru.
last week. Okay, he's still a guru. We'll visit him on the mountaintop someday and ask his opinion about something and let Eric ask him. You can ask Coach Boom, your old roommate.
That's right.
Here in South Bend, well, this one has been circled on the calendar since the day it was announced years ago. Georgia at Notre Dame for the first time ever in a regular season game. Coach Kirby Smart joined Scott Howard with a scouting report of the Fighting Irish in just a few minutes on the Georgia Bulldogs Sports Network.
The perfect way to begin your Georgia football Saturday.
He's got a man! Oh! Touchdown!
Welcome back to the Bulldogs Tailgate Show.
2 tight ends in the ball game for the Dogs. I formation, handoff, Chubb. He cuts at the 6, to the 5, to the 4, and into the end zone. Touchdown!
Giddy up, Nick. We are tailgating in South Bend. Let's pause 10 seconds for station identification. This is the Bulldog Sports Network from IMG. Yep. All right, here's our Lauren Smith with a guest. Lauren.
Frank Ross, captain of the 1980 National Championship team, has organized a watching party for that team, and I'm sure you've included some friends at the indoor practice facility now. We've heard that the facility is a multi-purpose facility. Frank, must be a great setup for kids to gather, or for you guys to gather at the indoor center to watch Georgia play Notre Dame today. How is it?
Yeah, it's obviously exciting. Anytime we get the guys together, it's always a lot of fun and exciting. So a lot of the guys that couldn't make it to South Bend are coming here with their spouses or significant other. And actually, as we're talking, I'm touring the facility. It's unbelievably beautiful.
When you all gathered and began kibitzing with one another, did you all recall, reminisce about 1980 Sugar Bowl?
Yeah, absolutely. When we get the guys together, the stories get bigger and bigger, and we're better and better every year that passes. But it's fun to get together, and we're excited to watch this game. Obviously, it's hard to believe that Georgia and Notre Dame have only played. Today will be the second time in the history of college football with 2-story programs. So everybody's excited about it.
Well, Frank, in 1980, I can remember late in the game, Hurt was saying just one more time, and you put your arm around and said, Coach, don't worry, we got him. Why was your confidence so high there in that stressful situation?
Well, I mean, Coach Russell was known just really come up with ideas and thoughts and quotes, and his thing that year was team me and also one more time. And that was about the 10th time he said to us one more time, because if you remember, the defense played about 58% of the game. versus the offense playing 42%. And so we were pretty exhausted. So we played a lot of defense, and every time we come off, we said, "Can you go one more time?" So finally on that last one, we looked at him and said, "Coach, we got one more time in us." And that's what we did, and it was a blast.
Well, Frank, all the best to you guys. You all have a great social. Have a great time watching the game. Let's hope we can make you all smile and celebrate one more time. Recall 1980. Once again, we go back over to Neil Williamson.
Okay, sorry, folks. We're having a problem down here on the sideline. And thank you, Loran and Frank Ross, for joining us. It's a dream matchup for Georgia fans. This home-and-home non-conference series versus one of the 10 greatest programs in football history. Coach Smart is next with the voice of the Dogs, Scott Howard, to preview tonight's historic clash. 2 minutes from Mark on the Georgia Bulldogs Sports Network.
Welcome back to the Bulldogs Tailgate Show from South Bend, Indiana. I'm Scott Howard along with Georgia head coach Kirby Smart. It's time to take a look at today's scouting report and our opponents, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. How would you describe this team? What are your words that you've used to describe this team to your team?
Big, physical, very much built like an SEC team. They've got a lot of stature on the offensive line. They got big backs, big receivers. Defensive linemen are big, linebackers are big. So they kind of recruit to a size criteria. They have a lot of big guys.
How much has this team changed from what you've seen? I know you've only got one game to work with, but from last year, a club that went 4-8 to their opener against Temple, which they won handily last week.
Yeah, they've changed dramatically, both offensively and defensively. They went out and hired two of the premier coordinators in the country. They're doing a great job on defense of attacking and coming after people. I mean, they had 7 returning starters that 3 of them aren't even starting anymore. So I can tell you right now that changes the dynamic on defense. And then offensively, they're up-tempo, fast-paced. Coach Long does a tremendous job. They go really fast, and they've got a quarterback that they can do it with, very athletic guy.
Can you go into detail about some of those individuals you just referenced? Let's start with Wimbush, the quarterback.
Wimbush is a guy that I knew coming out of high school. He played at a high school where I recruited a kid, and he's a tremendous student, but he's a great athlete. He's like having a tailback at quarterback, really strong arm, fast, hard to get on the ground. And when you combine him with a couple wideouts, St. Brown, that's as fast and big as the guys we'll see all year, talented guys. And they've got a tight end core that's similar to ours, a little bit bigger than ours. But they've got a very talented offensive skill set when it comes to that group.
And then their offensive line to protect all those guys is very big, too, as you said earlier.
They got 2 guys that will be drafted high next year. Left tackle, left guard are both highly rated players. Probably first-round pick at left tackle. The right side is young, probably a little more inexperienced, especially the right tackle. He's not a guy that's played a lot of downs, and they've had some struggles over there. That's something that we've got to look at, but there's not many holes in that offense.
You always want to respect your opponent, but you don't want them to be intimidated. Is there a fine line to get your guys ready so that they don't stay on one side of that line?
Oh, yeah. Our guys, I don't think the players nowadays are intimidated by really any team. They're just not. It's not the way kids are built. They think they can beat everybody. It's always trying to make sure you keep them on the other side and they respect them because they don't fear these other teams for sure.
Tell us about their defense.
Yeah, the defense is a big front, but they've actually gotten a little more athletic this year. That's the bigger change to me is on defense. This year they've gone with some smaller, quicker guys on the edges, replaced some starters, got more athletic linebackers in there playing, and they're doing a really good job with that group of creating negative plays and being really aggressive.
What are some of the other things that jumped out to you in that first game, their first performance of the year last week?
Just how fast they started offensively. It was 2 plays, touchdown, and they tempoed people and did a really good job. Defensively, they flew around and were really aggressive. They were good on special teams. So, I mean, they had a great opener against a team that Temple that was in a bowl game last year. It was a pretty good team.
With all the coaching changes that they made in the offseason, have you noticed that maybe philosophies have changed at all? Or are they still doing what they've been doing?
Well, they've changed philosophy defensively. Certainly, they are a lot more aggressive, and they've gone with more athletic lineup. Offensively, it's more tempo, high-paced, RPOs, lots of RPOs, and they've got some good wideouts to do it with. So they've changed distinctively from last year.
Will they shuffle a lot of players in and out? Do they substitute a lot?
They didn't play a lot of guys on offense the other day. I thought that had a couple guys out, and they were holding them out maybe, but defensively they played a lot of guys.
How about special teams?
Do a real good job on special teams. They've got a special teams coordinator that was a head coach last year at Nevada, and he's Bill Polian's son, and he does a great job of their teams. They've got C.J. Sanders who's returned 3 kickoffs for touchdowns. So they know what they're doing, and they got good people doing it.
Is this an exciting time for your guys?
Oh, yeah. Our guys are pumped. They get this opportunity to play in such a great game, great atmosphere. South Bend, it's a tremendous opportunity for our team.
It's the Bulldogs and the Irish. That's our look at Notre Dame with Coach Kirby Smart. We'll come back for more with the coach a little bit later on in the Tailgate Show. Hondo, we'll send it back to you.
All right, thank you, Scott. Thanks to Coach Smart for taking the time. One of Larry Munson's great highlights just 2 minutes from now. Stay with us. It's a sea of red in South Bend. We have taken over this town, most of northwest Indiana, and parts of Chicago. Kickoff at 7:42 on the Georgia Bulldogs Sports Network.
You're listening to Dogs Football. Now back to the Bulldogs Tailgate Show.
He ran over him. There he goes. Herschel's gone.
Joe will try to kick one 100,000 miles.
Dogs on top. We were gone. I gave up. You did too. Look at the sugar falling out of the sky.
Georgia football history through the voice of a legend. Here's another listen back to Larry Munson's greatest calls. Presented by AT&T. AT&T is a proud sponsor of the Georgia Bulldogs. AT&T. Entertainment your way.
3rd down, 8. Dogs in a hole down on their own 9 and into that hard north wind. 20-0 Georgia leading. Amp Arnold wide to the right on an eye. Got 2 tight ends in there. Kentucky's up on a 6-2 now, looking close. Buck Bellew sprinting out to the right. And Buck is going to go to Amp Arnold. And it's completed the 35, the 40, the 45, the 50, the 45. He's down over the 35. And Amp Arnold has a man dive and miss him. And Amp Arnold is down in the corner. Buck sprinted to the right with a couple of blockers. And the play went, 90, 91 yards. Jeff Dennis, the left end, Venus Moe, the right cornerback, chased him only 1 or 1 1/4 steps behind him. Amp Arnold on that long bomb.
All right, from 1980, Buck to Amp. Georgia beating Kentucky that year, and of course beating Notre Dame in the Sugar Bowl to win it all. If you wonder why we didn't pick a Munson highlight from that 1981 Sugar Bowl on January 1st when Georgia defeated the Irish to clinch the national championship, it's because back then the bowl would not allow local radio to call the game. So Larry enjoyed Herschel and the gang's win, just like all the fans, without being allowed to broadcast it. We kick tonight at 7:42. Eric Zier will rejoin us in about 10 minutes to take us through the Bulldog scheme to stop the potent Irish attack. And Mark Schleybaugh from ESPN is going to join Loran next. You're tuned to the Bulldogs Tailgate Show on the Georgia Bulldogs Sports Network.
This is Georgia Bulldogs football.
35-30. He's got a convoy. He's going to go. Touchdown.
Now back to more of the Bulldogs Tailgate Show.
1st and 10, Georgia ball on the App State 28. Fromm throws down the middle. He's got a guy. It's caught. Long leaping in the air inside the 10. Dogs have it 1st and goal. That's big Javon Wims who brought it down right in his belly. A perfect pass from the freshman Jake Fromm.
Down here on the sideline at Notre Dame in South Bend, along with our support staff of Tony Schiavone, Chris Schiavone, Jay Black, we've got Loran Zier and Hondo, and Loran has a special guest. Loran.
Very special. Mark Schleybaugh lives in Madison, one of the great towns to live in all of the U.S., not just Georgia. But he grew up here in South Bend, and he got a glimpse of the Irish, the Notre Dame football program early on. What impressed you about Notre Dame when you were growing up? Who were the heroes here? for you then, Mark?
Yeah, it was actually Blair Keel and Alan Pinkett. So, the first game I ever went to was 1977, Notre Dame against Georgia Tech here. Montana was the quarterback. I think they won 63-7. But my first newspaper job was actually the South Bend Tribune. I grew up about 30 miles south of here in Culver, Indiana, home of Culver Military Academy, which is where Notre Dame holds their preseason camp every year for a week. So my dad would bring me up there whenever he could. I grew up a Notre Dame fan, and then I grew up.
Well, Georgia fans couldn't wait to get here. What's been the reaction of your South Bend friends, folks from back home, to hosting Georgia?
I had a guy tell me at lunch today, we stayed up in New Buffalo, Michigan. I brought my wife and 3 kids, so I figured this was the only time.
You couldn't get a room with your connections?
No, but we stayed up on the lake in a little cottage. That's what happens when you leave your wife in charge. And the waiter today said that the only time he can remember this many fans of a visiting team being here was Nebraska a few years ago, and he thinks there's more Georgia fans here today. And I'm a huge diehard Cubs fan, and I have never seen what I saw last night at Wrigley on video. We're going tomorrow, but that scene from the bleachers in Wrigley last night was absolutely incredible.
Do you think the Braves need to think about signing Vince Dooley?
Yeah, he bounced one up there, but it was across the plate.
Mark, you're all over the map. Author, columnist, broadcaster. You do a little bit of everything. What do you enjoy most?
I think still coming to the stadium on Saturday. It's why I got into this. It's the greatest sport on earth, and I've been able to see a lot of great games. I've been able to go to a lot of great venues. None of them as great as Sanford Stadium. That's the Georgia grad in me, but this is a special place right here to be where Rockne was and to see Touchdown Jesus and all the great All-Americans and Heisman winners that played here. I'm just really glad that Georgia gets a chance to play here, and my kids are here to see it, and all these great Georgia people are here to see it.
Now, you've just co-authored a book on the Baylor debacle. Give us a glimpse. Is that thing as bad as we hear?
Yeah, it was pretty horrific. We worked on it for 2 years. I wrote it with Paula Levine, who's one of my colleagues at ESPN, a reporter for Outside the Lines, and to talk to those women, we probably talked to close to a dozen of them who say they were sexually assaulted at Baylor. It was tough. It's light reading, but it's a very important book. It's gotten great reviews, thankfully, and thanks to those courageous women, we were able to write it.
Will Art Browse ever get another job?
I don't think so. I mean, I was surprised at the outcry in Canada when he was hired as an assistant coach, and he was relieved of his duties later that day. If he can't get a job in Canada, I don't know how he's going to get a job in college football.
All right, Mark Slabaugh, ESPN, resident of Madison, Georgia, who grew up here in South Bend. Thanks for joining us.
All right, thank you, Mark. Great to see you here. Thanks so much, Mark. Great to see you here, and thank you, Lauren, for that nice interview. Notre Dame, with its mammoth offensive line, will try to pound away at our Bulldogs tonight. Eric Zier has sidled up to me here to discuss the Dogs' plans to halt that fighting Irish attack. Zier is next. We're about 75 minutes from the thrilling first-ever meeting in South Bend between these storied programs. This is the Georgia Bulldogs Sports Network.
Setting the table for Dogs football.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, touchdown!
You're listening to the Bulldogs Tailgate Show.
2 receivers out to the left for the Mountaineers. 1 to the right. Run out of the pistol. Fake. Lamb rolls to the left. Looking deep. Looking. He pulls it down. We knock the ball out of his hands and chase after him. They'll follow the ball back at the 35. J.R. Reed came in and hit Lamb and knocked the ball loose. And then there was a scramble for the ball, and Lamb was able to fall on it back on his own 35-yard line. A sizable loss.
He's very competitive. He loves the game. He plays fast. He's a good open field tackler. I just think the kid's really a student of the game. He takes it serious. His approach to the game is the right way.
Bulldogs coach Kirby Smart with kind praise for sophomore transfer D-back J.R. Reed. Georgia linebacker Davin Bellamy reminded us that it's not as though J.R. Reed is a first-year player, even though fans are seeing him in Bulldogs game action for the first time.
JR is kind of like an older guy mentally and also with his years. So besides it being like his first big Georgia game, I think he was kind of prepared, kind of what to expect, more so than the real like true freshman.
Eric Zier back with us to talk defense as Bellamy, Reed, and the Dogs prepare to put up their dukes against the Fighting Irish. Notre Dame returns 4 starters to its offensive line. 6'8" left tackle Mike McGlinchey projects as a future NFL first-rounder. And guard Quentin Nelson returned for his senior year, too. He's another probable early first-round NFL pick.
McGlinchey's probably going to be a first-round pick. If not, he's going to be really close because he came back and probably could have came out and been one. He is very impressive and just mountain of a man. That whole left side is really strong and powerful. They've got this good offensive line, as you'll see.
There's Coach Smart. Z, tell us about this line in particular, Mike McGlinchey, the tackle.
First of all, this offensive line across the board, just mountains of men. McGlinchey, 6'8", 315-pound. Nelson, 6'5", 350 pounds. Those are the 2 potential first-round picks going into the NFL. Sam Mustipher, the center, 6'2.5", 305 pounds. Alex Bars is 6'6", 316. Tommy Kramer, another 6'6" guy, 315 pounds. So just a huge offensive line that is very talented. McGlinchey, for only the second two-time team captain, for only the 22nd time in team history. Pretty impressive when you think about the history of this program. He's second-team preseason All-American. He's an Outland and Maxwell Trophy watch list kind of guy in 2017. 28 straight start happens tonight. He's big, he's talented, he's experienced. That left side of this offensive line for Notre Dame is going to be a load to handle.
You were a 2-time team captain, were you?
I was.
How about that, huh? I'm impressed with that too, sir. The matchups against the Irish are going to be different than what we saw against the smaller App State last week. More from Coach Smart, please.
We're going to get to find out a lot more about our defense because the backs are going to be bigger and faster. The quarterback's going to be bigger and faster. The offensive line's bigger. The wideouts, they're all 6'3", 6'4", 6'5".
Irish quarterback Brandon Wimbush was number 3 dual threat recruit in 2015. Last Saturday, Wimbush rushed for 112 yards and threw for 184 more on 17 of 30 passing for 2 touchdowns.
Type of offense, man, we can't let that guy get out the pocket. We got to really contain him and keep him under those yardage and keep him, in the pocket and throwing that ball. Don't let him break it and run.
There's Georgia defensive back J.R. Reed on Wimbush. And this is a recurring theme that we're starting to see in college football. Feels like every week you've got a dual-threat quarterback that can hurt you with his arm. He can hurt you with his legs as well. And while Wimbush can indeed throw the football with his legs, he can really do some damage. He's still inexperienced when it comes to playing in big-time games like this and throwing the football. And when that happens and when things break down, he's going to want to run. And J.R. Reed nailed it. You've got to keep him in the pocket. You've got to try to make him one-dimensional. Don't let him extend plays. If he's got to move, force him up in the pocket where you've got a big push coming from some of your big guys and you force him into a lot of traffic. If you can contain him, your chances of slowing down this Notre Dame offense that ran for 422 yards last week becomes greatly maximized, but stopping him is key.
Great article in Sports Illustrated. I think it was last week in the Pro Football Preview edition about the RPO offense and quarterbacks in the NFL and the difference between college football and the NFL, and really, really good long, in-depth article.
Yeah, it's a completely different game when you get to the NFL, but in the college game right now, it is the read pass option, run pass option, is so difficult to defend. It's like you're running the option. You get defenses isolated. In the pros, you've got guys so big and so so fast, much more difficult to run that kind of an offense because of the risk of injury of your quarterbacks. But no question, it's taking the college game over.
All right, thank you, Z.
And Dog fans, join us every Sunday from 10 until noon from Hilltop Grill as hosts Jeff Dantzler and Kevin Butler break down all of the action from the day's game. Hilltop Grill, located at 2310 West Broad Street in Athens.
All right, Eric Zier, you're ready to come back and game plan for tonight's showdown in about 10 minutes?
Can't wait. Look forward to it.
All righty, great. It's a sea of red out there on the concourses, and so far inside the stadium, I'd say it's 80-20 red to green in here, folks. It is crazy. Now, of course, the Georgia fans coming in early to try to get a feel for the stadium and the experience here, but man, you should see the end zone under their huge new video board. It's all red. It is crazy. Wow, wait. Could we do what Nebraska did here a few years ago and bring 30,000 fans into the stadium? We'll find out. Georgia and Notre Dame kickoff right here at 7:42. This is the Georgia Bulldogs Sports Network.
This moment of commitment is brought to you by Farm Bureau Insurance, always the home team. The University of Georgia is committed to ensuring that all academically qualified students, regardless of financial background, have the opportunity to earn a degree. Scholarships create life-changing pathways that might otherwise be unreachable. So we launched the Georgia Commitment Scholarship Program to offer more scholarships to the students who need it the most. The University of Georgia is removing barriers and opening doors for students. It's more than our mission. It's more than our passion. It's our commitment.
It's the perfect way to begin your Georgia football Saturday.
He's got a man! Oh! Touchdown!
Welcome back to the Bulldogs Tailgate Show.
From sidearms one across the middle, and it is caught by the freshman DeAndre Swift from Philadelphia. He made the grab at the 24-yard line. Should be a full 10. It is. It's another first down for the Dogs.
From the Scana sideline at Notre Dame Stadium, the Bulldogs Tailgate Show continues. Hi, everybody. Neil Hondo Williamson along with Loran Smith, Eric Zier. And back in the box, the voice of the Georgia Bulldogs, Scott Howard, is with us. Okay, Scott, so I heard an announcer insinuate this week that Kirby Smart was wrong when he spoke of today's players not knowing a lot about the Notre Dame heritage and mystique.
These kids went to all-star games with all those guys. They know all those players. You know, our kids and the kids from Philly, they played in the state championship game. The kids from Cedar Grove Pace. There's a lot of guys that have played in big games before. I know it's not the same thing as playing at Notre Dame, but to them, a lot of times, there's not a huge difference for them. So the moment for most freshmen hasn't been too big.
Now let's hear what two Georgia players had to say about this trip. First, fullback Christian Payne, followed by defensive back J.R. Reed.
Touchdown Jesus. That's where Rudy played. Where all these great players played, all these great coaches coached. Just an historic field. When I saw them on the schedule, I was really happy about going up there. You know, they got Touchdown Jesus. They're a historic team. They got a bunch of Hall of Famers on that team. And as a kid growing up and seeing that team and hearing about Rudy and watching 30 for 30, you always dream about playing there.
Scott, the only player these guys named was Rudy. These guys don't know anything about this.
About the history?
About the history.
You're probably right. No, you know what? I don't think they really care.
No, I don't. And that's what Coach Smart was saying. That's what Coach Smart was saying. But I heard somebody going, "Oh, he's wrong. These players know." I was like, these guys, all they can name is Rudy.
No, well, that's the stuff that has been in their lifetime. You know, they've seen the movies and they see these guys on television, so they see the Gold Dome and they see Touchdown Jesus when they show it on television. But as he said, you know, all these players know one another, especially the upper tier players that play in the National High School All-Star games. But, you know, any kind of mystique about where those guys play is not really a big deal to today's current college football player. They probably don't know about Newt Rockne and the Four Horsemen and all the Heisman trophies and all that stuff, nor do they care. It's not important to them.
Not a bit. All right, let's get to football. 3 Georgia players who missed last week. Tell us what you know about the status for each for tonight, please. Defensive back Aaron Davis, guard Solomon Kinley, and receiver J.J. Holloman.
Well, about all I can tell you is that all three are on the dress roster. They're all on the roster. They all apparently have made the trip. I haven't counted heads since, we haven't had many guys come out of the locker room yet. We've had some special teams guy.
Yeah.
I know as of the last time I spoke with Kirby about this particular situation, they were still hoping to have Aaron Davis and to get him ready to be able to go tonight. And Kinley was back at practice this week, and I think both guards actually are maybe a game-time decision between Solomon Kinley and Pat Allen and Dyshawn Sims and Kendall Baker. Again, I think we're going to see some form of those four players in those two positions at guard, left and right guard. And Holloman, I'm not 100% sure what his current situation is as far as being able to play in this game.
All righty, and we do get two guys back who didn't play in the first game, right? We got Riley Ridley and Elijah Holyfield.
That's correct, yes. They did not play in the first game, but they are available tonight, and Kirby kind of likes that situation. He actually said, both of those guys immediately will be able to help on special teams. Whether we'll see them on scrimmage downs, we'll have to wait and see when this thing gets started. But they will probably get into the game on special teams.
All right, thank you very much, Scott.
Bulldog fans, GeorgiaDogs.com is your first and best source for Bulldog news, scores, highlights, interviews, and behind-the-scenes video. You can also buy authentic dogs gear in the G-Shop or bid against other Bulldog fans on our exclusive online auctions. Visit GeorgiaDogs.com today.
All right, thank you. Eric Zier is going to come back in 2 minutes, and we'll talk about a game plan for tonight between the Dogs and the Fighting Irish. Wallace Butts, Harry Mayer, Vince Dooley, Mark Richt. None of the Red and Black's greatest coaches ever led a Georgia team out of the tunnel here at Notre Dame Stadium. Tonight, Coach Kirby Smart and his 15th-ranked Bulldogs attempt to upset number 24 Notre Dame with true freshman quarterback Jake Fromm under center. As we count you down to kickoff between the Dogs and the Fighting Irish, stay with us. This is the Georgia Bulldogs Sports Network.
You're listening to Dogs Football. Now, back to the Bulldogs Tailgate Show.
Ball on the 22-yard line. Handoff Michelle. Bounces out left. 25-30, 35-40. Michelle, middle of the field, 50, 45-40. And they'll bring him down at the App State 34-yard line. A.J. Howard, the strong safety, finally riding Sony Michelle to the turf at the Mountaineer 34.
The great number 10, Eric Zier, back in the saddle to help us game plan tonight's showdown with Notre Dame. Today's game plan is brought to you by Country Financial. Take simple steps today at countryfinancial.com/simple steps. Well, true freshman Jake Fromm is going straight from the frying pan of his no warm-up debut last week in Sanford Stadium into the fire of a night road game at Notre Dame.
He came in and managed the situation well, and every situation will be different because App State obviously wasn't planning for him, so next team probably will be.
Well, Eric Zier, Coach Smart, and offensive coordinator Jim Chaney, are they speaking any differently to Jake Fromm today than they would be if we were playing at home against Samford?
No, not at all. Football's about routine, and you don't change up that routine regardless of who you're playing. You don't want to make big games bigger than they really are. You don't want to make games against the Samfords of the world seem less important because of a letdown of the team. When you get into the season, every day is scripted. Every minute of your life is scripted, and is to get you just into that mindset of doing your job at a level of excellence. So no change in the level of coaching or how or what they're saying to Jake Fromm coming in to South Bend tonight.
The Irish defense is led by linebacker Miles Morgan. Last season, he dominated, leading the team with 90 tackles and 4 sacks.
Their best players on defense are the linebackers. So we got Miles Morgan in the middle, Drew Tranquil being their Sam, and Greer Martini as their Willen. I mean, they've been playing a lot of ball.
There's Georgia fullback Christian Payne. Eric, will we see more of the fullback than usual due to Fromm's inexperience? just play some handoff right and left to Chubb and Michelle?
Listen, I don't think we will. I think the weakest part of this Notre Dame defense right now, at least the least experienced part of their defense, is their secondary. I think that we go after it and attack it. And all that we've heard about Jake Fromm, and I think we saw it last week, he is a gym rat. He studies. He understands the offense. We can go back to a story that we were talking about last week in an all-star game where he got in on a Sunday, studied the entire playbook all night, and was telling the coaches exactly what to do on certain plays when a mistake was made. Jake Fromm, the limitations around this offense aren't going to be placed on him because of him. Maybe for some other reasons, maybe because of what the defense dictates, but I expect for us to go out and attack this defense no differently than how we would. We're going to attack it in a way that's going to make us most successful, and Jake Fromm's the man that can go do it for us.
We're game planning for tonight with the great Eric Zier. Flipping to the other side of the ball, Notre Dame has a new offensive coordinator in Chip Long, which poses problems for the Dogs in the film room.
I think anytime you play a team like that, you got to do a great off-season study, which is what we've done, and try to put together as much as you can and do the best you can, because at the end of the day, you got one game tape to go off of.
Georgia coach Kirby Smart, who does expect the Irish to push the ball and the clock.
This team's going to go fast. I mean, that's what they do. They're going to go tempo. And when they do that, you got to be able to handle it, and it's what we've worked to do. So it's a great challenge for us defensively.
Eric Chip Long's MO at Memphis was to crank up the tempo with lots and lots of plays to keep the defenses on their heels. But after what they did last week, it appears the Irish want to play fast but play the power game.
Yeah, no question about that. And they want to do that because they've got a massive offensive line that we've talked about throughout the show. All 5 guys on that offensive line, over 300 pounds. They are all 6'4" to 6'8". And you've got a couple of guys on the left side of this offensive line that are projected first-round guys that are all Americans coming into this game. So you're right. They want to be up-tempo. They've got a quarterback in Wimbush that fits that system absolutely perfectly. Can hurt you with his arm, hurt you with his legs, but make no mistake about it. They're going to run the rock as much as they can behind that big offensive line.
Yeah, we'll see if they just line up and run behind the left side of that line in particular with McClinchy and Nelson over and over again. All right, thank you, Z. We are sitting here inside Notre Dame Stadium. Eric and Lauren and I are down on the sideline, and I'm seeing more green in here than we were before, but still, the amount of red in this stadium right now is really something. Less than an hour till kickoff.
Yeah, there's no question. I'll tell you what, they're ready to roll too. When all this group was outside, you could hear the calling of the Dogs from outside the stadium, standing in the middle of the field here. So they are riled up. They are ready to go. They got to the stadium extremely early, like you said. Up until a few minutes ago, it was 80% red and black. So we're showing up loud and proud, and hopefully the team on the field does the same thing.
Well, as we're chatting here, a certain 6'5" individual with a cane just came limping by. He's talking to some folks. I don't know if those are his parents or not, but Jacob Eason, who is not suited up for tonight, is having a conversation right now with some folks in the stand while the rest of the Dogs, at least the special teamers, are on the field. We have not seen a lot of the Georgia players out there so far today. Scott Howard and Kirby Smart with the Inside Skinny less than 10 minutes away. Scott, Lauren, and Eric are next. We're walking you up to Georgia versus Notre Dame from the Scana sideline in South Bend on the Georgia Bulldogs Sports Network.
This is Georgia Bulldogs football.
35-30, he's got a convoy, he's got to go, touchdown!
Now back to more of the Bulldogs Tailgate Show.
Cabell Philpott inside the network studios. Time for a Comcast Business Scoreboard update. Midday games winding down. Number 25, Tennessee up 35-7 on Indiana State. Midway through the fourth quarter in that game. Also midway through the fourth quarter in Nashville, 42-0. Vanderbilt blowing out Alabama A&M. The top-ranked Crimson Tide, 41-10 winners over Fresno State. Number 23, TCU takes down Arkansas 28-7. The Fayetteville home opener for the Arkansas Razorbacks. Brett Bielema's team at 1-1 so far on the young season. Kentucky 27-16 winners over Eastern Kentucky. Ole Miss 45-23 winners over UT Martin. Big games on the horizon this evening, just about 10 minutes away from kickoff. down in Death Valley as Auburn gets together with the Clemson Tigers. Both these teams have played over the last 5 games they've played over the last 10 years, decided by an average margin of less than a TD. 2 of those games went to overtime. We'll keep you posted on that, Hondo. I know the stadium is filling up, and I heard they had a nice touch today as well at Notre Dame, honoring the late Aaron Parsegian, who passed away just back on August the 2nd, I believe. The goalpost pads, I heard you talked about signage earlier. That's a nice touch for those guys.
Yeah, they have ERA on the goalpost pads, and not only that, but a T-shirt they're saying just says ERA on the front. And all of the players came out, the Notre Dame players, for their first go-round of stretching with ERA on the front of their shirts, and then something on the back that I didn't really have time to look at. But thanks for bringing that up. I'm sorry, his record. Yeah, and it was a good one indeed. All right, we're back with Scott Howard up in the booth, and Loran and Eric and me down here on the field. And when the Georgia skill players, I guess some of the linemen came out with them too, so came out on the field about 2 minutes ago. What a roar out of the red and black.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you, this crowd is ready to go, and you're right. As soon as our kickers came out, the offensive linemen came out, you felt like you were back in the friendly confines there in Athens, but this crowd is ready to go. They've been ready to go for a while and about ready to let loose.
So Faith and Bigard, Loran O. Smith, Scott O'Howard, and Eric McZire are back with us, and laddies, it's almost time to tee it up against the Irish.
With how this defense has been playing in practice, and also with all the guys coming back, I feel like it was kind of expected, and really just went out there and did our job.
That's Georgia linebacker Davin Bellamy, who was modest in his assessment of the Bulldogs' shutout performance through 3 quarters last week. Tonight, Bellamy and company face another spread offense from Notre Dame.
First of all, he is an explosive athlete. He looks as fast as any player on their team. Maybe a couple of the wideouts are faster, but he's a very explosive player. They do a good job with the RPO system.
Eric, there's Coach Smart. We discussed Notre Dame's offensive tempo and Irish quarterback Brandon Wimbush at 6'1", 226 pounds, and a great pair of wheels. If he can complete his fair share of passes, Wimbush seems like the ideal player for the spread-based RPO.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about it. You see him out here on the field. He is a big, thick, 226 pounds as well. Very athletic. 106 yards on the ground last week, 17 out of 30 for 184 yards through the air, couple of touchdowns. Listen, Temple's defense is not our defense. He's going to be in for a new and unique test today, but he is the right guy to lead this offense. We have to keep him contained in the pocket, make sure he doesn't get outside the tackle box, try to force him up into the middle, into the teeth of our defense to slow that down and make him as one-dimensional as possible. He gets outside, he can hurt you.
All right, Scott Howard, Georgia's offense employed no trick plays, jet sweeps, end-arounds, anything last week, as the only players who carried the ball were tailbacks and quarterbacks. How much wild dog might we see tonight, and does the ratio change based on the fact that Jacob Eason is out?
I don't know the exact percentage of what we would see. It may remain in the playbook, but I would, I'm hoping for a healthy dose of Nick Chubb and Sony Michel, and I like them. Getting that handoff. I'm not real crazy about the wild dog. I don't know that it gives you an extra blocker supposedly. I guess by the math it does, but you don't always see a lot of big plays spring out of that offense. It's probably better in short yardage situations unless you put a real quick, fast guy like an Isaiah McKenzie type back there and do something tricky with it. But hopefully we see a lot of Chubb and Michel and Jake Fromm standing in there and connecting to those tight ends and receivers.
Lauren, it's hard to find anyone out there who has anything but laudatory remarks about Jake Fromm's maturity.
Well, I was talking just a moment ago, just a little while back, with our offensive line coach, Sam Pittman, and I said, how do you like him? He says, well, he's just really a heady player. I said, well, I don't think he'll panic. He says, you can count on that. He says, he will not. He will not make a foolish mistake. I mean, that's the kind of confidence they have in him. But he's a heady player, and I think Kirby said it best. He's been a winner all his life.
Very good. All right, thank you, gentlemen. Man, it is filling in now, folks, and there is just a whole mess of red. Yeah, Lauren.
Before we go, I just want to say hello to Polly Van Gorder. Her son, number 4, is a third-string quarterback out here.
Yeah.
Montgomery Van Gorder, and he's the holder. for Notre Dame. So he's in his career, but they're all still Georgia Dogs.
Yeah, they are, and I'm glad you did that. Hello to Polly if she's listening out there right now, our old friend indeed. Folks, I'm telling you, there is so much red. I'm looking at one end zone, and you can go all the way around one side, and it's at least 60% red, all the way around to the other end zone where that entire bowl is almost entirely red. Then I'm going back around the stadium again to the 50-yard line. The only part of this stadium that is not dominant red right now is the Notre Dame student section. Now, the Notre Dame fans coming in later, of course, they know their way around. Georgia fans wanting to come in, get some of the atmosphere, the aura here. Looking up here right now, I see Ty Fricks, who was our long snapper for a while. I saw Ty and a young lady with him row earlier today on campus, and they're in the stands. Ty Fricks' dad was our snapper, and his little brother Trent is is the snapper for the team right now. But Ty is taking pictures in here at Notre Dame. It's a lot of Georgia red. We'll come back. Scott Howard, Coach Smart with the Inside Skinny on tonight's game at 2 minutes on the Bulldog Sports Network from IMG.
Setting the table for Dogs football.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, touchdown!
You're listening to the Bulldogs Tailgate Show.
Back on the Bulldogs Tailgate Show with Georgia head coach Kirby Smart as we close in on the kickoff between the Georgia Bulldogs and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, the first visit for Georgia. What are your thoughts here as you get ready to play in a new location?
Awesome. It's a great place to be, and we're excited to be here and looking forward to the opportunity to show what we can do with our team.
What did you see from your guys last week? What did you learn about your team after that first contest?
Well, I learned they bought into the special teams aspect. A lot of effort on special teams. The specialists kicked well, but our guys really covered hard. I thought they battled through some adversity on offense. And defense, we got to play a lot of players and found out what some guys can do and what they can't do, and we got to grow on that.
As far as the special teams guys are concerned, Cameron Nizelek and Rodrigo Blankenship, they kicked really well, did their jobs. Is that what you had seen from them in August as they were going through that competition?
Yeah, they both been really consistent, and we expected them to kick that way in the App State game. We expect them to kick that way today, and it's really who they are, what they work to do. They're kind of like assassins. They only get one shot, and they got to get it right.
What did you like from your performance last week?
Well, I like the fact that the offense stayed patient and stayed with things. They got to where they could run the ball a little more in the second half, hoping to wear teams down and be more physical. And our backs got to take effect in the second half. It's tough running the ball early, but you got to keep banging it away and be patient with it and make plays when the defense gives you that opportunity. Defensively, we did not create any turnovers, which is frustrating. We flew around, but we got to make some lost yardage plays where we get some turnovers.
It was certainly troubling that Jacob Eason was injured in the game last week, but did you like the way you responded, next man up kind of mentality?
Yeah, I think you always got to do that. Every position on our team's got to be ready, and every day could be your day. You never know when your number's going to be called, and Jake Fromm was ready for when his was. That's just the kind of kid he is. He prepares the same way all the time, and he'll do that this week.
Can you give us an update on Jacob's status and how Jake Fromm performed in practice this week?
Yeah, Jacob is here with us, and excited about him being on the trip. Hopefully he gets better with each day of rehab and recovery. We're looking forward to getting him back. Jake did a good job this week of leading the offense, and he's taken over those reins, and I think he understands what that position means to an offense. He's just got to play within himself and understand he can't do everything himself.
Were there any other dings that concerned you from last week's game?
Yeah, we're still fighting the bug a little bit with Aaron Davis. We're trying to get him back. We really need him back, and hoping that he's able to go full speed today.
You played a lot of freshmen last week. I know a lot of those guys got in later in the ball game, but you had some that were frontline guys like Richard LeCount. How did you feel those guys played for you?
Richard had some good and bad moments. I mean, we had a couple busted assignments. He's got to settle down, and I'm hoping that experience of playing in, heat of the battle in prime time, it'll pay off for him. Walter Grant was the same way. DeAndre Swift was the same way, and so was Andrew Thomas.
Were you pleased with what you got from your first team guys defensively?
Yeah, I felt like we had that team a little overmatched, and Felt like we played well, but that was to be expected against that group. Today will be a much bigger, true test for our guys defensively because we're going to go against a much more powerful run game, much more athletic quarterback, and a lot of good wideouts.
What does that mean for Georgia defensively? What do they have to do to control all of that?
We got to control the quarterback. We got to keep him in the pocket. We got to control the run game. If you can control the run game, keep the quarterback in the pocket, make him make throws from there. Now, we got to do a good job covering him outside, but we got to make him make throws inside the pocket.
They had 3 guys go over 100 yards last week, and certainly Georgia has a very talented running back core too. How do they compare at all with what they have with what Georgia has?
Well, they got a bigger offensive line, that's for sure. I mean, theirs is massive, and their quarterback obviously is a very different style than ours, so it forces you to play their quarterback a little different than you would play our quarterback. But I'll put our backs up against anybody in the country. We got really good backs. They've got good, powerful backs. They're a little different than our guys. They got bigger guys, real physical guys, but they've got a good combination to go with them with their offensive line.
Kirby, thanks very much for your time. A highly anticipated matchup, Georgia and Notre Dame coming up. We'll wish you a lot of luck, and we'll talk to you a little later on after the game.
Thanks, Scott.
All right, that's Coach Kirby Smart as the Bulldogs and the Irish are coming up here soon in South Bend, Indiana. Hondo, we'll send it back to you for more of the Tailgate Show.
All right, thank you, Scott. Let's pause for station identification. This is the Georgia Bulldogs Sports Network. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming back. Many of our fans are likely too young to recall that Notre Dame did not participate in postseason bowl games between 1925 and 1969. Once the Irish did return to postseason play, they faced the number 1 ranked team in the nation in a bowl 5 times in their first 9 games back playing in bowls, including January 1st, 1981. That's when Vince Dooley's Dogs, led by Herschel Walker's 150 rushing yards and 2 TDs, defeated Notre Dame 17-10 in the Sugar Bowl. The second ever meeting between Georgia and Notre Dame is, 38 and a half minutes away on the Georgia Bulldogs Sports Network.
The perfect way to begin your Georgia football Saturday.
He's got a man! Oh! Touchdown!
Welcome back to the Bulldogs Tailgate Show.
Ball back to the 44. Lob pass caught by Notre. Reaches high and brings it down, and he's tackled at the 28-yard line. He reached high around the 35, and long strides got him down to the 28-yard line.
Notre Dame has won 897 football games. Good for second on the all-time list for Division 1A schools. That's also 101 more than Georgia, which posted victory number 796 last Saturday versus App State. Our Bulldogs rank 11th on the all-time list, wedged under Southern Cal, but above LSU and Auburn. In recent years, the Irish have not fared well against ranked teams over the past 4 seasons, posting a 6-11 record during that span. Not one of those wins came against a top 10 squad. For comparison's sake, the Dogs are 8-10 against ranked opponents since the start of the 2013 campaign, including 4 triumphs over top 10 teams. And tonight, the 2 programs collide for only the 2nd time in gridiron history. The first resulting in that 17-10 Sugar Bowl Georgia victory, which clinched the 1980 national championship for the Red and Black. It is a sea of red, folks. In fact, one of the Georgia players just mentioned to me that it's like being at a home game. We'll see if it's that way when all of the rest of the fans come in, but for right now, certainly a ton, folks, of red sweaters and shirts around here at Notre Dame Stadium. Our producer-engineer is Tony Schiavone. Bulldogs Network producer is Adam Witten. Cabell Philpott provided scoreboards and production from our studios. Chris Schiavone and Young Jay Black have assisted us with this broadcast as well. For Scott Howard, Loran Loran Smith and Eric Zier, this is Neil Hondo Williamson. The Ford Drive to kickoff with Scott, Eric, and Chuck Dowdle is next. Then, for only the second time in history and the first time here in South Bend, Georgia will take on Notre Dame on the gridiron. Pretty fun, huh? I'll talk to you again at halftime. This is the Georgia Bulldogs Sports Network.